Hello there. I've never been much of a fan of Harry Potter, but from the things I know about it is that it is still considered to be absolutely amazing in all regards. Perfect and an untouchable thing that really doesn't have any flaws, and any and all things negative are absolutely non existent. But I'm not typically one to be blinded by nostalgia, even if it's something of being one of my favorite movies. Not necessarily my books. Growing up, I had two Harry Potter movies, the first and the second one, and preferably I liked the Chamber of Secrets more than I liked the Sorcerer's Stone. The second film just had something more going on, and it didn't focus so much on the discovery portion of magic. Although, mind you, there's still some, and it's still pretty good. I don't hate the discovery of new element type movies, but when you make it the entire film, then it feels like a drag to me, and especially in book form. The movie itself feels like an awesome mystery, a thriller, and it improves upon the first film. It doesn't feel like the characters are just, bumbling around. But of course, I wouldn't even begin to read the books until years later, talking about at least a year ago, and finishing the second book about a couple months ago. And to be frank, while the books came out first, I believe the movies do a better job of portraying the awesomeness of the wizard world. Now, with that being said, we're talking about Chamber of Secrets today, and my opinions on it. Well, let's talk about it. Now, the story starts off with Harry being stuck in bed as his adoptive parents trap him inside his room. They have some important guests over and don't want the young lad to interrupt. So, Harry is stuck in his room alone, wishing he was at Hogwarts. But suddenly, a house elf named Dobby shows up to tell him, "Stay home, grave danger." And as though Harry forgot that the literal enemy could be anywhere and anyone, and did indeed almost killed him, Harry says, "Fuck that, I wanna almost die again and go to Hogwarts." Truly the smartest lad in the world, our only hope. Then Dobby does some magic to keep old poor Harry stuck at his house, as his adoptive parents literally bar his windows, thinking that Harry had scared off his guests. When indeed it was actually Dobby, that little bitch. All seems lost as Harry is stuck in his house and has to face the fact that he will never see Hogwarts this year, or perhaps even the next. He had not gotten a single letter from his friends over the summer and had come to the conclusion that they fucking hate him. But wait, looks like Harry has a change of luck, as he sees a literal flying car out from his window. It turns out to be Ron and the rest of his brothers, who have arrived to save Harry from his cage. After barely escaping the alerted Dursleys, Harry, Ron, and the rest of the brothers leave off to finally arrive at Hogwarts. Now I go on, but really, is there any need to? We all know the story, and in fact, anyone who hasn't even read it knows somewhat how it goes. Now, there is something to be said about the whole presence of Harry Potter. Now, you can't go 5 steps into the reading side of the internet without the acknowledgement of Harry Potter. It gets to a point where it becomes this icon of fine writing and that it deserves the pedestal of where it's at. I'm someone that can see the value of the writing of these books, but let's be honest with ourselves. They're just good. There's a huge rain of tinted glasses that everyone wears. Concerning this, when I started reading these books, I was tainted by the knowledge that these were amazing and that maybe I would enjoy myself. But honestly, reading the first and second book was really a drag. Its intense fame and legendary status really ruins the experience for someone like me that's lived in a world where Harry Potter is the best kid story to grow up with. When reading the book itself, I noticed that the story was a near carbon copy of what the first book did, except now the concept of death is more prevalent. There is more air of mystery, of course, and the true villain of the story is unknown. Except it isn't unknown. We know who it is from the very beginning. Even if you didn't read the book, did you honestly think it was going to be someone different? Of course it was going to be Voldemort. There are some range of new characters though. Gilderoy Lockhart, who is this amazingly funny character in the story. Colin Creevey, who in my own personal opinion, I think should have stayed in the story a little bit more, but oh well, let's push him to the side. Lucius Malfoy, Draco Malfoy's father, and Tom Riddle, literally fucking Voldemort except teen. These characters add something a bit new to the world of Harry Potter and teaches Harry some new lessons. But the problem with that is it's the same ones from the last book. The thing I enjoyed most from it is that there was still a sense of mystery and that something wasn't quite right. The creatures of the book, the spider and the snake, were amazingly descriptive and had a sense of terror that I really enjoyed. Although the spiders probably would have taken out the giant snake no problem if they tried, but they were scaredy cats. Either way, my favorite parts of the book. Though, then we get to the small side segments that plague the sum of the book. There is less this time around, but honestly, one too many in my opinion. One moment there are strange voices coming from the wall, literally threatening Harry, but then we get into a Quidditch match and it becomes relevant because I don't care about the match, I care about the petrification that's happening around the school and the students and everybody that's in grave danger. Then we find out that Harry can talk to snakes, which was actually foreshadowed in the first book, so kudos for that, honestly. But then we get sidetracked with classes about fucking plants and a ghost party, and I really don't give a shit about these characters. Of course, that last one sets up Harry in a trap by framing him for killing one of the cats that belonged to a janitor, but oops, just kidding, not really. He's not framed. Literally, Dumbledore says he didn't do it, and everyone's like, ah, yeah, you're right, he didn't do it. Of course, there's like, oh, well, I guess. But yeah, no. Literally, that's not there. Now, one of my favorite characters from the book, Gilderoy, is such a narcissistic ass and so full of himself that it's honestly really funny. Until it's not, and just unveils to be another dumb side thing that holds no real prevalence of the story. Lucius Malfoy holds a little bit more importance, and is actually a reason things happen in the second year, but kinds of fucks off in the beginning, then fucks back in the middle, then fucks off again until he shows up back at the end. Then Tom Riddle shows up, who actually turns out to be Voldemort himself again, but in a memory, but also from the past, but also in the present. I made it sound dumb on purpose to make it sound funny, but actually it works very well in the book, and that's one of my favorite portions. Of course, funny enough, the creativity of the villain itself is lackluster. It's just Voldemort again, but younger. What did you honestly expect? But an entire book dedicated to mystery about who done it and about how it done it, and it just turns out to be Voldemort again. Pretty much disappointment settles in. Look, there's nothing wrong with having the same villain be, the villain, but honestly, strangely feels like a rehash, even though it isn't. For me, it just feels disappointing that it led up to something so obvious. The conclusion, however, is executed amazingly. When the story really focuses on what matters, it feels like an awesome thriller that takes you for a ride. It really separates itself from its last predecessor, but there are still remnants of stalling within this book that feel really bland and drags on more than it should, so it could fill out pages. Like J.K. Rowling really didn't know what to do in the middle portion and just said, here's some random things the characters do while I think about what happens next. Now, you might be wondering why I haven't really talked about the main characters. Well, that's because there's nothing different about them. They're the same, always will be. There are lessons that the characters learn, but let's be really real here. They don't change as characters, and there's nothing new to talk about. Hermione is still the group's walking library who will give the necessary exposition when it's appropriate. Ron is still the comedic sidekick, although he does get some good moments. I feel that they aren't really worth the trouble talking about, though. And Harry is still the same kid he was before, just 12. There's an even bigger argument to be had that he's just as bland as a plate of yogurt, though that could be so that the reader could project himself onto Harry, but I talked about that last video a little bit. Overall, it's okay, and it's better than the last book, though it's not good enough for me to really pick up the next book. Maybe I will for the sake of the series, but truthfully, I have no real need. Thank you for listening to this, guys. Honestly, it's really fun doing these things, and I appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button, share it around, make sure I get fed this morning, all that. Other than that, I know I said I wouldn't do another one of these for a little while, mainly because reading books takes a little bit of time. I'm a bit of a slow reader myself. I do enjoy the act, but I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you guys next video. Bye-bye.